Welcome to wftutorials.com. Today we're going to look at a Laravel tutorial, quick overview. If you want to learn more about programming, you can always check out the website at app.wftutorials.com. We have a list of tutorials here, quick beginner introduction tutorials that will get you up and started very quickly. So let's jump into Laravel tutorial. You could also check out WF tutorials on GitHub. You should have all the repositories there with all the code samples and examples. Alright, so getting started with Laravel. So in the composer you need PHP, you need Node. You run the composer create project command, Laravel, and the directory where you want to save the information. So we create ours as Laravel tat, and then we run PHP artisan save, and this will get you to a beginner, to introduction, to a basic template. So it has a basic template right there. So once you install the application and run artisan save, your web server will be set up and it will be running at this location, or it might be different for you. And you will see the welcome page. Very simple welcome page. So in true programming fashion, the next thing we're going to do is look at a hello world sample. So we say here we head to the web.php. So let's check it out. Web.php is in your routes directory. So we head to your routes directory and web.php. And this is our routes file. So what can we do with this? So if we create a function called route, that get, we pass in hello world as the first argument, and then a function which is a callback function as the second argument, and returns hello world. When we restart the server and head to this part, we'll see hello world. So you can see it. This code sample right here is how we create this. So basically all these things are routes. So we have a hello world route, a help route, and we'll learn about this later. So routes is how we control where our application goes via the URL. So we're going to see what other kind of routes you can create. Alright, so if we want to pass in parameters, we can do that quite easily. We have a placeholder and we have access to the ID that will be passing in via the URL. So this works that simply. So we call the route function static route class. Alright, so on the route class, we call the get function. We pass in the route path. This time we have the placeholder as an ID. So we have curly brackets that shows the placeholder. And when we test it via the path, we have access to 5 return our callback function. So that's pretty straightforward. And we can add more than one. So that's what multi-parameters show here. We can add more than one. We can have an ID and we can have a page. So that's 2 placeholders we put, and then we have access to it in the callback function ID page. If we wanted to, we could not do it that way and use our vanilla get and post super globals. So that's always an option. So you can see view in book via ID. To test post, we use Postman, so you can always download and install that to run your API requests. You just have a very simple post, a create route that only accept post requests. If you try to access any other type of request here besides post, you'll get an error. So once we post, we get a return test, which is what we have here. Again, pretty straightforward. And now let's head into controllers. There's one thing here. We need to add an exception and verify CRFS token. Otherwise, your request won't work. So this is cross-site protection that Laravel kind of has in built-in default, so it has a unique ID, and if the server doesn't recognize it, the post request is taken as being false. So it's pretty cool, but for testing purposes we disabled it just to test out this simple post request, just to show you how to actually do it. So within app, so let's find app HTTP middleware. You have the verify CSRF token. So we add an exception here to this particular route so that it doesn't require it. Alright, so let's work on controllers. Our controllers are stored within the app HTTP controllers folder. We have a base controller here, well, that extends base controller, and then we could create our controllers. So the first example is the dashboard controller, which is pretty straightforward. It has one function. It's a class, it extends controller, and it returns this is the dashboard controller. So if you look at it, it's probably more complicated now. Yeah, so it's complicated now, but this was the simple example. And in our route, all we need to do when we call the static get function on route, let's look for dashboard controller. Where can we find dashboard controller? As you can see it here, right? So this is where we create the route. So dashboard controller at, and we reference a function called index. Anything within this function will return and display within the dashboard part. So if you go to dashboard, we see this is the dashboard controller. To keep this under 10 minutes, we're going to go a bit faster. Alright, so you can do redirection. So you call the route redirect function. You could do redirects like that, or you can actually call a redirect function within a route. So that's one way you can do that. We have an example here. Now we're looking at another controller, still within the app HTTP controllers function. We create another controller called users controller, and we create a function called show. We attach a route to that function so that when we go user show, we can now see showing all users as we have here within the function. If you wanted to render views, which is pretty important, we could call the view function within our show function, which is in our users controller. So let's check out our users controller. So we have show here, and we have our view function right here. So that's step one. You also need to create the resources view. So this is the HTML template that you use. So let's go to resources. Where is resources? Resources is right here, and then we go to views, and then we use in blade. So we have users.blade, and as you can see, it's a pretty straightforward layout. This one is more complex, but let's look at a simple one. All you could do is put h1 element there and put showing all users, and you do that, bam, it works. Pretty straightforward. If you wanted to pass data, you could pass data as the second argument in the view function. So right now we have access to title, which is supposed to say hello world, and as you can see it here, the header we use in the title that we passed in, so that should happen as we expected. There's an alternative way to do it using width, which is chained from the main view function. Alright, so layouts is also very important. Oh boy. Alright, so we're going to skip layouts for now. We'll come back to that at a later date. Layouts are pretty important, but let's skip layouts for now. Let's focus on some very simple control structures. So within our blade templates, we could use @if, and if. So that's like an if-else statement. Well, if just one if statement, and then we end it, and then we end it. We pass in show, as we can see here. We have access to it within our template. For loops, we have @if, and then we have our for loop. @for, and then we declare our variables end for. As you can see, it shows this output. Working with the database. So we already have a database set up called WF tutorials, and within our config database or the .env file, I really have to confirm which one of those things work. We add our configuration, and now using the DB static class we can query our database. So we use DB select function, we add in our query, we say we want to limit, we pass in the variable that would be this parameter here. So we have our placeholder, so that's a prepared statement, and we add in the 100 after. Returns the data, and then we display it in our for. Well, so this time we're not using a view, we just display it one time. So this is test, users test, we just display it. Query builder is something else we could use. We call the table name and get, and apparently if we do this we get all the users, and we could just display it. We could also do find by primary key, call the find function, DB table, call the table name which is users, and find 10, and that should give you the 10th, well, the primary key, the row whose primary key is 10, right? So we can get the first row by calling get and first, and we could use a where query. So this will give a where first name is equal to this, and value is email. So if all we want is email, that's what we'll be returning, and we show them an example there. So we're going to skip migrations, but you could read up on this after. Working with models, you could create a model easily, make model, then you add the content within it, and then you migrate it. But alright, let's see what we do here. Post all. Alright, so it seems to be pulling it, so you don't need to add anything special, it's pulling all the information it needs directly from the database. So all we do is choose the table. So say our table is post, we choose the table, and then we could use our model like this. So we have post all, which gives us all the posts, which is pretty cool and very helpful. Working with forms, again, you can learn more here. I have some links inside as we get more in depth. Working with Eloquent, all the fancy stuff that you can do with table names, protected table name, primary keys, incrementing, timestamps, default timestamps, stuff like that. Great stuff. So with forms, we have a different function here that we call from the route class. So get and post, we both are accepting for dashboard create. So dashboard create we can call get and post requests on this route, and the function is attached to is create, and then within our this is our template. So create.blade.php, we have a template here. CSRF protection, you need to have that. If you don't put this, form will give an error. Action method is post, and this is how the controller has it. So let's check out the controller. I believe this is dashboard, right? So let's check out what dashboard has. So within dashboard, we can see we get the request, we check if it's post, we add some stuff to our model, and then we echo save, we return false. If it's not a post request, then we just show the view. That's pretty cool. So this is how we show our form, and then we submit it, and we see what we submitted. And we can save by just calling save, and this is from using our model. So the model that we created, which extends model, which is Eloquent model, we just call save, and that should save it. Then we work with assets. We did some examples. Say we could work with assets. Laravel could do a lot more, but this is like a purely basic introduction. We have the asset function that we call within our Blade template. and then we do add in JavaScript files, which doesn't seem alright. So the same asset function that we're using. And then user authentication, like you can build out a whole workflow for this almost automatically. All the code is generated for you by calling these functions, which is really cool. We need npm to do it apparently, and that does everything for you. And then you just passing your middleware as being auth. As in, this actually called protected routes, this is suggesting that this route needs to be, the user needs to be authenticated in order to access this route. Otherwise, what would happen? I don't know. Let's see if you have it here. Yeah, you gotta force you to log in. Alright, so that's our first introduction to Laravel. It's pretty straightforward. You skip some concepts. Explaining these things take way longer than expected. So you might have to find a better solution to do this. But are we going to stop here for now? Check out more tutorials at wftutorials.com. Later.